Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Abu Bakr Abid and I'm going to be your teacher for the Quran in Arabic in 30 days course. We're going to cover in this course all of the foundational Arabic grammar to help you understand the Quran. The focus of this course is Fusha, so formal Arabic, classical Arabic, the one that's used in the Quran, not so much the colloquial Arabic that's spoken in ordinary language. Now, for these lessons, I'm going to be following this excellent book called Arabic Through the Quran. I have a description and a link for it in the video description below. So who is this course designed for? This course is designed for people who have the ability to be able to read Arabic. So if you can read the Quran, even if you're even slowly, that's sufficient. You don't need to know any other Arabic grammar. It's designed for an absolute beginner in terms of Arabic grammar. Some simple vocabulary is helpful because this course doesn't really focus too much on building vocabulary, but I'm going to be giving you examples, and whenever I give you examples, I will of course always translate them, but it helps if you have some working vocabulary, if you know, for example, kitabun means a book, and that kind of thing. If you would like to improve your vocabulary, perhaps as you take this course, there's a Chrome extension you can download that shows you an Arabic word along with the translation every time you open up a new tab. So if you use Chrome or Edge, you can go ahead and download this extension. I also have a link to it in the description below. That'll help you improve your Arabic vocabulary and help you master the language of the Quran even more. All right. Before I start, we're embarking on a pretty important journey, and so it's important to set our intentions. Why are we doing this? There's times it's going to be hard, and so it's important to have an intention that will motivate us and keep us focused on our goal. One intention that I suggest is the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he is reported to have said, "Khayrukum man ta'allama al-Qur'ana wa 'allamahu." Khayr means the best. Khayrukum means the best of you all. Man is the one who ta'allam learns al-Qur'an, the Qur'an, wa 'allamahu, and teaches it. So, of course, Arabic is foundational to be able to learn the Quran and to be able to understand the Quran. And so if we have this intention, inshallah, we'll be focused and make the most out of this class. Now, by the end of the class, inshallah, you will be able to take a look at a hadith like this or a verse and be able to understand the grammatical pieces, what's happening, how are the nouns and the pronouns and the adjectives and verbs interacting in order to make this sentence, inshallah. All right, with that being said, let's go ahead and actually get started. So the focus of today's class is nouns and adjectives. So nouns in Arabic, here's an example. Kitabun means a book. Kitabun means a book. One thing that you'll notice is that this is only one word in Arabic, kitabun. So where is the a coming from? Well, it turns out that there's no a or n in Arabic, okay? To indicate an indefinite noun, meaning, not any specific book, any book, a book, we actually turn to the kitabun, the ending here, that's actually indicated. So I'm going to go ahead and show how that looks. So this kitabun, on ending, that is what indicates that it's a book, and specifically the fact that it's a tanween. So kitabun, kitaban, kitabin, they all mean a book. Okay, so that begs the question, how do we say the book? How do we understand that we're talking about a specific book? To say that, we would have to say al-kitabu, which means the book. So you'll notice that the al is what indicates the. So this is a more direct analogy to what happens in English. So you can, just like you put the before the word to get a specific book, you put al before the word to get a specific book. And of course, when you put al, you no longer need the tanween, because the tanween, the double dhamma, is a sign of indefiniteness. So to suggest a definite book, we say the book, al-kitabu. Okay, and later on we'll see, we might also say al-kitaba or al-kitabi. But the key components here are the al and the singular kind of ending here, the single vowel ending there. Okay, so the second thing that you need to know about nouns in Arabic is that they all have gender. So what does that mean? So it's not just that, names have gender, or, specific kind of very gendered nouns like father and mother have gender. But really, every noun in Arabic has a gender. So kitab, book, has a gender. It turns out it's masculine. Every other noun, so shams has a gender. It turns out that it's feminine. Every single, sama, sky, has a gender. It turns out it's feminine also. So all nouns have gender, and that's going to be really important when we cover adjectives in the next slide. So let's understand what the gender of every noun is. It turns out that a reasonable working assumption is to say that words are masculine unless they have some sort of sign of femininity. So what does that mean? So for example, if the noun ends in a ta marbuta, this letter right here, then it's probably a feminine noun. If it ends in a alif mad with a hamza after it, then it's probably a feminine noun as well. And if it has a very direct feminine meaning, then it's probably a feminine noun. In most other cases, it's a masculine noun. So let's take a few examples. So for example, if we take an ayatun, this word here, ayatun, which means verse or a sign, is that masculine or is that feminine? It's feminine because of this ta marbuta ending. What about al-ayatu? You'll notice this is just the definite version of this. So this means a verse, this means the verse. This is also feminine. The definiteness does not change the gender. Okay, it still ends with a ta marbuta. So the verse, that's still considered feminine. What about here? Ummun, that's also feminine. And that's because in this case it doesn't have a sign of femininity like as part of the written word, but because of the nature. Mother is what ummun means. So therefore, that's very feminine. It just is a feminine word. Okay. All right. So, and now let's turn to adjectives. Okay. So it turns out that adjectives and nouns are very kind of similar in Arabic. They have very similar grammatical properties, and in particular, all adjectives also have a gender in Arabic. And the signs are pretty much the same signs as the nouns. And the most important one is the ta marbuta, this ending here. And what you'll notice in Arabic is that in order to convert an adjective from being descriptive of a man to being descriptive of a woman, or being more precisely being descriptive of a masculine noun versus a feminine noun, you just add this ta marbuta at the end. So for example here, kabirun or al-kabiru, which means big, if you want to describe a feminine noun, you would use kabiratun or al-kabiratu. What's the difference? Just this ta marbuta at the end. Okay, so this is the masculine adjective, this is the feminine adjective. Similarly, shadidun or ashadidu, when describing a feminine adjective, it becomes shadidatun or ashadidatu. Okay. Now, let's actually start connecting nouns and adjectives. So we would like to be able to say things like the beautiful recitation. Okay. How do we say things like that? You'll notice that there's an adjective there and a noun there. So when you're using an adjective to describe a noun, they have to share certain properties. For example, they have to share definiteness or indefiniteness. So if the noun is definite, so must the adjective. If the noun is indefinite, so must the adjective. Similarly, they have to share gender. If the noun is masculine, the adjective has to be masculine. If the noun is feminine, the masculine has to be feminine. Okay. And then there's two other properties as well, singular or pluralness, and then also case endings. We haven't covered these yet, so far we'll focus on the first two, and we'll cover the next two properties in the next two lessons. So let's take a look at a couple of examples to make this super clear. So let's start with the first one. Al-yawmul akhiru, the last day. So al-yawm means the day, and al-akhir means the last. So you'll notice here that is al-yawm definite or is it indefinite? It's definite. Is al-akhir indefinite or definite? It's also definite. How do we know that? Because of the al at the beginning and the lack of tanween at the end. Okay. So al-yawmu al-akhiru, the last day. If I said al-yawmu akhiru or al-yawmu akhirun, that would no longer mean the last day. Okay. Similarly, if I said al-yawmu al-akhiratu, so al-akhiratu is the feminine version of al-akhir, that no longer is correct Arabic grammar because the definiteness and the indefinite has to match. Let's take a look at this next one here. Qur'anun mubinun. So Qur'an linguistically actually means recitation. Mubin means clear. So Qur'an means a recitation. Mubin means a clear something. So what we see here is a clear recitation. Qur'anun mubinun. You'll also notice that in Arabic, the adjective comes after the noun. In English, it's usually the other way around. We say a clear recitation. The adjective comes first, but in Arabic, the noun comes first. Qur'anun mubinun. Finally, let's do one more example here. Rahmatun wasi'atun. Rahmatun means mercy. It's a feminine word, and so therefore we use the feminine adjective wasi'atun, which means widespread, instead of wasi'un, which would mean the masculine version of widespread. Okay, so you'll notice they all agree on the definiteness or the indefiniteness. They all agree on the gender as well. Now, the definiteness or indefiniteness is very important to get that right, because if you get that wrong, you actually change the meaning. It turns out that a definite noun followed by an indefinite adjective actually forms a sentence rather than a descriptive phrase like what we saw before. You'll notice that if I go back to the previous slide here, these are not complete sentences, right? Qur'anun mubinun means a clear recitation, but what about that clear recitation? There has to be something else here to complete the sentence. However, if we have a definite noun followed by an indefinite adjective, that actually forms a complete sentence. So let's take a look. Allah, the word Allah, is a definite noun because it actually means the God. We don't actually say that in English, we just say God with a capital G, but it's referring to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the God. So it's definite. And you can kind of see that Allah comes linguistically, it is said, from al-ilah, so the God. And so we see here al, that kind of al remnant here. And so this is a definite noun, Allahu. And then we follow it with a indefinite adjective, qawiyyun. And so what that means is God is strong. So whenever we transition from definiteness to indefiniteness, there's an implicit is that appears in the middle. Okay? So whenever you go from definite, Allahu, the word Allahu, to indefiniteness, qawiyyun, I have to put an is in the middle. So it becomes Allah is strong. Okay? Or the second sentence here, Allahu qawiyyun azizun. Here this is translated as Allah is strong and mighty, or powerful and mighty. So again, as I transition from Allah to the word Allah to qawiyyun, I have to put an is in the middle because I'm going from definite to indefinite. Okay, and again, we can see that here I added another adjective as well, azizun, with just that's if you string up along multiple adjectives in Arabic, you can just translate that in English as powerful and mighty. Just put in the word and in the middle. Okay, so that's all of the steps that you need to know in order to actually start working with nouns and adjectives. So again, if you're doing a noun adjective phrase, then you have to agree on 4 things: the definiteness, the gender, singular, plural, the case endings. If you want to build a simple noun adjective sentence, then you keep the noun definite and the adjective indefinite, but you still have to agree on gender, singular or plural, and case endings. And again, we'll cover the last 2 items here in the next couple of lessons. So let's do a couple of exercises to make sure that we all got this material. So let's translate these phrases that appear throughout the Quran. So throughout the course, I will be giving you examples and exercises that are taken directly from verses of the Quran. So you can start applying that and understanding that. So al-kitabul mubinu. Al-kitabul mubinu. What does this mean? So here we notice that we have a noun, al-kitab, the book, and it's definite because of the al and the u ending. And then we have a noun, then we have a definite adjective, al-mubinu, the clear. So because they both are definite, I would translate this as the clear book. The clear book. Notice that it's not the book is clear. That would be al-kitabu mubinun. Okay, we'll see an example of that in a second. But because both of them are definite, I have to say the clear book. So it's not a complete sentence, it's just a phrase. Similarly, in the next verse, I see kitabun mubinun, a clear book. A clear book. Qur'anun karimun. Qur'an, again, we can translate here as recitation. Karim, generous. So we see here a generous recitation. Very interesting, a generous recitation. Rahmatun wasi'atun, a widespread mercy. A widespread mercy. Okay, so you'll notice in all three of these, both of the nouns and adjectives are indefinite, so we translate that as an indefinite phrase. A widespread mercy. Let's do two more. Allahu azizun. Here we have a definite noun followed by an indefinite adjective. So we see Allah is the mighty, or Allah is mighty. Okay, Allah is mighty. Here we have Allahu qawiyyun azizun. Allah is powerful and mighty. Allah is powerful and mighty. Alright, thank you very much. This was lesson 1. We covered nouns and adjectives. And inshallah, I look forward to seeing you on lesson 2.